Hi there! Welcome to this month's edition of Greenbelt Nature Crafts with Angel. That's me. I'm Angel Ehlers, and I'm really excited to bring this two-part craft to you today. It is a moderate to difficult craft, which I think is really great because it really tests and challenges us and really teaches us new skills, and this one is especially good for our dexterity and fine motor skills. So what we're going to be doing today is learning how to make something really amazing called cordage. You may have heard of this before, or maybe the word cordage reminds you of the word cord, and that makes perfect sense because what we're talking about is rope. So cordage is a rope made from natural materials, oftentimes plant fibers, that is an ancient technology that Indigenous people from this country and Indigenous people from around the world have mastered over the last thousands of years. So when they would need to lash together something to maybe make shelter, or they needed to make thread to sew things together, or anything to maybe wrap around a bundle of sticks to bring it home with them, they would need some rope, but they couldn't go out to Michael's like I do and buy rope, and they'd have to make it themselves. So they'd make it out of any manner of natural materials. If it were plant fibers, it could be anything from dog bane, which they'd find right here on Staten Island. They could use roots of certain trees and plants. They could use shoots and thin branches of things. They could even use long grasses. So what we're going to use today is a natural fiber. It's called raffia, and it is from a tall grass that grows in Africa. So you will not find this here, but there are other grasses that grow here on Staten Island that would be similar to this that we've found and used as well. But this is what it'll look like when you pick it up from the craft store, and we're going to wrap it up together and make our very own cordage ropes. This is a nice bundle that I made from raffia. It has this nice kind of beige yellow color. I made this one from some cattail leaves, not found on Staten Island, but somewhere where they grow a little more prolifically. And this makes this nice green color. Another green one that I made was actually from some discarded corn husks that someone threw out from their Thanksgiving decorations. So I got really crafty and made that out of corn husks. Finally, I made this one out of the inner bark or the cambium layer of the cedar tree. And this is one of my favorites because it has this really nice kind of almost maroonish brownish color. And it's really great. So what we do today is we're going to make a bottle net out of the cordage that we learned how to make from raffia. And we're using raffia because we don't want to go and harvest too much of any plant around us, especially if we're not exactly sure what they are. So raffia is readily available at the craft stores, and it's just a really great place to start. So once we make the cordage, we're going to make a whole bunch of it. We're going to learn the really simple but still challenging stitch and wrap to make something like this. And this net is very commonly used in nautical applications, but also Native Americans would have used that as well for when they would go fishing on the shores. So let's get started. So now that we know what we're going to make, let's go through the different materials that we'll need to make this craft. Starting with our cordage making fiber, and today we're going to be using raffia, which you can get at just about any craft store. You'll need a bowl about halfway full of warm water, some scissors to cut your fibers. Tape is very helpful in the beginning to anchor your cordage to a table. I'm going to actually use a rock today and show you how that works. And then to connect it to your bottle, you're going to need some other rope. So we're going to use some leather strips here. Our very first step is going to be to soak our raffia, because as you can hear and tell, it's dry and it's brittle. So that's not going to be easy or helpful when we're trying to make our cordage. So we're going to separate it and soak it first in a bowl full of some nice warm water. And for this craft, we're going to be using about 20 to 25 fibers because we're going to be going for about 13 feet of cordage. So you can just take it, kind of bundle it up, and submerge it in water. It is very light, so you could actually put something on top of it, like a rock, to weigh it down, but it's not really a big deal, and let it sit there for about 15 minutes or until nice and soft. After about 15 minutes, when your raffia is no longer making that crinkling sound, but it's nice and soft and rehydrated, you're ready to start. We're gonna take out 2 long strands that are about the same thickness. You'll find that some of them are really thin and some of them are really thick, but we wanna try to work with the same thickness. If you have 2 thin ones that equal 1 thick one, that works also, but I'm gonna search for 2 equal pieces. And here I go. I'm gonna line them up at the end, and I'm just gonna make a simple overhand knot. Pull the end through the loop, tighten, and that's how I'm gonna start. I'm gonna leave this length here because that might be helpful later on. Or it might actually be helpful right now, because when I start, I'm gonna want to anchor this raffia to my table or my stone wall, whatever I'm working on. If you're at home with your table, you can use tape, and tape works really well to just secure it to your table. It is wet, so you'll have to use quite a bit of tape, but what I'm gonna do, because tape is not going to stick to my stone wall, is I'm gonna just put this rock right over it. It should be able to hold it nice and tight, because tension is key when making cordage. And now we are ready to make our reverse wrap. So pay a lot of attention at first, and then it's all autopilot. It's the same move the whole time. What we're gonna do is have the right strand in your right hand, the left strand in your left hand, and we're gonna twist them both in the same direction. Whether you're going left or right, they both need to go in the same direction. I'm twisting them left, and then whichever direction you twisted them, you're gonna go opposite one over the other. So again, it's gonna be your right and your left strands are both being twisted to the left, then your left strand will come over your right strand. And it's the same thing each time. So twist both strands individually to the left, and then bring your left strand over your right strand. And continue this process. And the tension that you're creating with both of those strands going in the same and then being wrapped in opposite directions is exactly what's going to keep your cordage together tight. And once you've made about 10 of these wraps, you can actually let go and test if you've wrapped them in the right direction. They should stay together and not want to unfurl. And if they're doing what mine is doing, then you did it the right way. If they're not doing that, just go back and make sure that you're doing exactly what I'm saying, which is wrapping, twisting both of them to the left, and then bringing your left strand over your right strand. If you find that you need to take a break, if you have to go eat your lunch or take a nap or something like that, you can just put your cordage and your raffia back in that bowl to keep it hydrated. You don't want to leave it in here for too long because it will start to break down, but for just an hour or two, that would be just fine to keep it workable. So I did take a break, and now I'm going to get right back into it. So you might notice that after a little while, you're running out of lengths of raffia. What do you think we're gonna do? That's right, we're gonna add more lengths, and I'm gonna teach you how to do that right now. What I'm gonna do first is I'm going to pick up my rock and move my cordage down a little bit so that I'm working with it at about the same length. You can do the same thing at your house. If you take off the tape and you're actually sitting at a table, you can wrap this end around the table leg and kind of just loosely tie it so that it's there. So every time you get longer than this, you can wrap it around the leg of the table again so that you don't have to keep moving your chair farther and farther away. And that's the idea here. So I'm shortening the length so that I don't have to move my position. And now I'm going to show you how we're going to add lengths of raffia or whatever fiber you're using to our cordage. I'm going to get another piece that is about the same size again. And you'll notice that I'm not waiting until I get to the very end to splice these in, because if I do it a little sooner, then I'm making sure that I'm not losing much strength in my cordage. And I'm going to do one at a time. So I'll start with this one just so that you can see exactly how I'm going to do this. I'm going to pull my two strands away from each other, take the new one that I'm splicing in, and just put it right in to the crease, right next to the one that I've been working with, and work with them together as if this new one has been there all along. So I'll hold that tight, twist this one to the left, twist my left strand to the left, and then bring left over right again. It is the same exact process. We're just making sure that we are adding that new length and keeping it nice and tight and keeping the tension really strong while we're doing this. And we'll do this for about 5 passes maybe, or 6, long enough that when we snip it, it will stay in there and it's strong. So I think I've done that. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to find that original length, remove it from my cordage, and only use the new length that I added. And then continue to wrap, left over right, and that is how I've spliced in one length of cordage. This may look messy right now, and if you're the kind of person who that drives you crazy, you can go in right now and snip them off and make them nice and neat. I like to wait until the very end because it's really satisfying for me to snip them all off together. Now, once you've gone down quite a good length, that's when you're going to start thinking about splicing in your other piece. Because if you did them both at the same point in the rope, then you know that that part of the rope is not going to be as strong as the other parts that had no interruptions. So I think we're about at that place now where I'm ready to splice in my second piece. I'm going to get 2 thin pieces this time that equal about 1 thick piece. This one might even want 3 pieces, and that's fine. You can add multiple pieces to equal 1 piece. Just try to keep the width of your cordage about the same throughout your project. And that's exactly how you splice them together. I can show you what it looks like if you wanted to snip these now. Get your scissors and start with your first one. And you're going to keep your scissors nice and horizontal to the cordage that you have, being really careful not to cut into your rope, but only snip the extra piece and then discard it to the side. And then snip. Guess what? You know how to make cordage. That is the entire process. But since we're making 13 feet of cordage to make our bottleneck, it's going to take us a little bit of time. And if it takes you more than one sitting, that's totally fine. For me, it took about an hour because I was very focused on it, and I've been doing this for quite a while. But it'll probably take you a little longer because you're just learning, but especially because you might have smaller hands. So if you wanted to put this down and revisit it tomorrow, or you wanted to invite family and friends to come and watch this video and learn how to make cordage so that they can lend a helping hand and it can be like a group project, that's a great idea. I encourage you to do that. I'm just going to show you how to store your cordage for that if you wanted to do it. So this is full of water, but again, we don't want to leave this soaking in the water because it'll start to break down and then you won't be able to make your cordage out of it. So all we're going to do is pour it out. easier to do outside or in a sink. We're going to squeeze out extra moisture. And then once you've done this, you can open it up, make sure it's not just sitting and being stored like that because it's still going to be breaking down. You can open it up and kind of hang it, spread it out. And the more surface area and the more space between, the faster it'll dry. And then once it dries almost as fast as it did hydrating. So once it dries, you can just leave it until you're ready to pick it back up again, and then just start that process again, filling your bowl with water, rehydrating it, and moving right back to your cordage. So we're back at our cordage, doing our reverse wrap. And this will take a little bit of time, but it's a really nice feeling. I like how relaxing it is. It's almost like a meditative activity for me, where I can get lost in thoughts, think about really good things. But before you know it, you're totally done. And all you have to do to finish it off is what you did at the beginning and make that overhand knot to secure it in place. Let's see how much cordage we made. Wow. That's 13 feet. Great job. Now it's time to take our finished cordage and learn how to make this really cool nautical net wrap around a bottle. This bottle is a decoration for my house, so I made it hang on its side because I want to put a plant in it and have it kind of cascade out like it looks like it's pouring a really beautiful beverage. You can do that with your cordage, or you can wrap up a water bottle or any kind of bottle. What's really cool about wrapping up the water bottle is now instead of something that you have to hold with your hand while you're going out hiking on the trails, you can just throw it over your shoulder and have it with you all the time so that you can drink water. And our first step is we're going to need a piece of string or your cordage, and we're going to wrap it around the thin part of this bottle. Not all bottles have this, but it is very helpful to keep it from going too high or too low. We're going to make a very simple square knot here, and we're not going to make this too tight or too loose. If it's too tight, there won't be any space for us to add our cordage for netting. If it's too loose, then it'll fall down and it won't hold your bottle at all. So just a very simple loop around the neck, and then you can decide how long you want this to be. I think that maybe about 2 or 3 feet would make a nice loop around to go over your shoulder. So mine's a little too short. I can add some more. And there we have a nice strap to go over our shoulder like that, so that we can always have our water nearby. And this loop around the bottle will be what starts our bottle netting. So your next step is you will grab up the end of your cordage, and you're actually going to undo that knot that you made so that you have 2 loose strands, because this will be easier to tie your knot to. I'm going to put one in the back, one in the front, and tie it right there. I'm actually going to add an extra knot there for extra security. So I tied it to the left side of the knot because I'm going to be going in a counterclockwise direction. I'm going to be going this way around. So I wanted it stuck at that knot and unable to move. Now moving forward, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that strap that we tied, and I'm going to tie it around the top just so it's out of my way and it's not getting in the way of trying to tie the net. And I'm just going to tape it down just like that. Just makes it a lot easier if it's not there. And now I tied the cordage to the left side of that knot. I'm going to trim it to keep it nice and neat. And then we're going to go ahead and start with our netting. So what we're going to do, our first step is we're going to take the cordage, bring it to the right, counterclockwise. We're going to bring it over the top of the loop around the neck of the bottle, under and behind, and through the left side of the loop. And we're not going to tighten that loop. We're going to keep it nice and loose. Pull the rest of our cordage through and make a little crossover loop like that. And we're going to do this about 4 or 5 times around the top of the bottle. And that will be our first layer of our net. And now we've completed this whole top layer. And we're going to do this same exact thing in the next layers. And I'll show you where that next layer starts. It starts right in the middle of that last kind of trough that you created there. So I'm going to do the same thing. Bring it over the top, around the back, pull it underneath to the left of where that cordage was, so that you're securing it. Just like that. And that's the process all the way through. So every once in a while, it's a really good idea to just pull your bottom layer down so that you're making sure that you are evenly spaced. It's a good opportunity to fix anything that's not quite even. The more even it is, the stronger your net will be. I continue to adjust this because I want to make sure that where I'm making that loop is in the center. Sometimes when I pull it, it's not quite in the center, so I spend the time to be careful and make sure it is nice and centered. to do the same exact process of looping around the bottom of the bottle as well. And just work with the curves and make sure that you are pulling everything nice and tight so that this net won't be very loose. So here we are, pretty much at the end. When I can't go any farther, that's pretty much the end. So what I'm going to do is just tie a knot and leave it right where it is. I'm going to tie the knot to this one. This is the next place that I'd want to go to. Can unleash the strap from the top, and you can take a look at the awesome creation that you just learned how to make. You just learned how to make a bottle net, and this net is the same exact net that people have made for thousands of years to catch fish in the ocean. That's it, you've done it. You crafted along with me today, and not only did you do a nature craft, but you actually learned a brand new skill of making a net and making cordage. Some parts of this craft were hard, some parts were even harder, but I'm really proud of you for sticking it out and asking for help when you needed it, and coming out with a really amazing finished product that you can really be proud of. If you happen to take any pictures of your crafting process, I would love to see them. Please send them along to sigreenbelteducation@gmail.com. We also have a website where you can check out some of our other virtual content. It is sigreenbelt.org. We also are on Facebook, Instagram, and we have our YouTube channel, which you already know about. So thank you so much again, and happy crafting.